start your first chapters of these first sessions. So, your political books, political science, divided in two parts. Part A, Contemporary World Politics, and Part B, Politics of Indian since Independence. So, today, I'm going to start Part A, Contemporary World Politics, Unit 1, Cold War. So, what is Cold War? Cold War is an unfriendly political relationship between two countries. It is a war in which armed forces do not fight. It is not a hot war or an actual war, but it has all the features of a war. So, Cold War means the rivalry that existed between two superpowers, USA and USSR. So, before going through these Cold Wars, we are going to come back to about World War. Now, students, we know the Cold War begins soon after the World War II end. So, World War I begins from 30 July 1914 to 11 November 1918, as well as Second World War 1939 to 1945. These First World Wars are between the two gangs. Between two gangs, I mean that Allied power and Axis powers. Allied powers are USA, USSR, Britain, France. Axis powers are German, Italy, and Japan. So, between them, these world wars are brought. After the end of the World War II, superpowers emerged, USA and USSR, the stage of the world politics. So, also emerged the two blocks, the USA lead capitalist and USSR lead communist bloc. So, the rivalry between the two superpowers lead the origins of the Cold War. During this course of the Cold War, the superpowers were alliance partners. So, a new situations of high tensions developed, and it was named as the Cold War. They became rival each other, both the nuclear weapons and the capabilities to destroy each other, but neither side wanted to risk a nuclear war, as both are aware the fact that the nuclear war could be suicidal to them. Students, now Cuban Missile Crisis, April 1962. So, Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was the most important and serious crisis of Cold War periods. So, in January 1961, the US broke the diplomatic relations with Cuba. So, in 1959, when US backed Batista government and overthrown the federal government, the Cuba's relation with USA become worsened. Those relations with USSR become improved. The US relations with Cuba worsens further in 1962 when US spy plans to photograph of Russian missiles based in Cuba. The US President Kennedy took a toe attitude and the situations became critical. So the world was on the verge of nuclear war between the two superpowers. Ultimately, good sense prevailed on both sides, so the Soviet leaders Nikita Khrushchev decided to withdraw the missiles bases from the Cuba and nuclear war was averted. The Cuban crisis was a period of resistance. Both the superpowers took interest in the easing of tensions between them. The superpowers took interest in the signing with limited test ban treaty (LTBT) in same years. After Cuban Missile Crisis, there were crises and wars in various regions, but the superpowers avoided wars. So both expressed interest in a just and genuine peace of the armed races. Now the students, logic of deterrence. Logic of deterrence: during Cold War, superpower adopted a policy of deterrence. It means that a state of affairs in which both the powers deterrate one another from deliberate nuclear attack by the threat of counter-nuclear war. So, in simple words, nuclear deterrence means that both the superpowers have enough nuclear weapons. So each side could therefore prevent the other from attacking it. The deterrence relationship prevented war between the superpowers. So they believed as a rational and responsive actors. So because they understood the risks of fighting, therefore remain the Cold War as a goal, not escalate in the Cold War. Students, now emergence of the two powers. During the Cold War periods, the superpowers made all out efforts to expand their powers of influence in different parts of the world. As a result, world was sharply divided in two superpowers. So one is Western Alliance and Eastern Alliance. Western Alliance led by USA, they are capitalists, and USSR lead the communisms. So there, UK, France, Italy, Belgium, Portugal, Norway, and Luxembourg, they are the Western European countries, and the Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, East Germans, and Bulgaria, they are the East European countries. Those were the allied groups of these two superpowers. And these Western alliances are known as NATO. It was formed in April 1949. And on the other, the Eastern Alliance was known as the Warsaw Pact. It was formed in 1955. Only this is Warsaw Pact was formed only for the counter of these NATO groups. So further, since 1960, they signed LTBT, PTBT in 1969, NPT in 1972. So in Cold War divided the world into two powers blocks. Under the circumstances, many newly independent countries were worried that they would lose their independence once again. In the meantime, cracks and split appeared in the alliance. Communist China had difference from USSR and even a brief war in 1969. So the emergence of non-aligned movement was another important development of in 1950-53. So the superpowers also realized at that time the war might be avoided at any cost. They therefore were guided by the logic of restraint and behaved with restraints and more responsible in international affairs. So those superpowers did not start any war tensions and rivalries between them continues. They were suspicious of each other and they felt that war might occur in spite of restraint. Hence, they armed themselves fully and were ready to war. The arms between them was continuous. Students, now the challenge to bipolarity. Bipolarity during Cold War divided the world in two rival blocs: capitalist US and communist USSR. So the newly independent states of Asia, Africa and Latin America, however, they decided to not to join these alliance groups. These states were named as the Third World. So it was a third world because they rejected the idea of the world divided into two blocks, capitalist and communist. Now the NAM. As NAM is Jawaharlal Nehru, the Indian should adopt this policy for certain reasons, as it should enable to India pursue an independent position in the foreign policy. So, secondly, it would help India to actively participate in the world politics. Thirdly, it would help India to play a positive role in the softening the Cold War. NAM was a positive policy pursuing an independently forming policy. So it was a policy of keeping away from the military alliances. The NAM has grown a worldwide movement. Today, the NAM is not, however, isolation or the neutrality. So it is not remain aloof from the world affairs. So the NAM countries do not remain isolated from world affairs, but they played an important role in the mediating between the two alliances during the Cold War periods. So they worked for peace and stability. So now also not in neutrality. Neutrality signifies that policy staying away out of war. So neutral states do not involve war, also not take any positions on the issues of morality and non-morality of war. But NAM states includes India were involved in wars for various reasons. They worked to prevent war between states, also tried to end war that had broke out. India and the Cold War. So as founder of NAM, India's response to the Cold War was twofold. First, it stays away from the two alliances, and secondly, it voiced against the newly colonized countries becoming part of alliance. So basically, India's approaches was neither negative nor passive. On the contrary, India actively intervened into world affairs to the soften Cold War rivalries. India made efforts to reduce the difference between the alliances during the Cold War tensions, such as the Korean War 1950-53. India played a mediator's role between the two superpowers. India tried to involve the non-aligned nations in its peace missions. As a reverse of Indian interests, India's policy of non-alignment was not just a noble international course as some critics feel. This policy serves India's interest very directly, at least in two ways. Number one, non-alignment allowed India to take international decisions that serve its interests rather than that of the superpower. Secondly, India was able to balance one superpowers against the other. None of the superpowers could pressurize India against her will. So I hope you all understood the unit Cold War.
Stay home, stay safe, do it for